The salvage station floated like a dead whale in the darkness of space. Harper 9, they'd called it once, back when people actually lived here. Now it was just a tomb with flickering lights and air that tasted like rust and recycled sweat. Lily Martinez pressed her face against the cold window of the cargo bay, watching stars that didn't care if she lived or died. She was 15 years old, and she'd been alone for 73 days. She kept count by scratching marks into the wall of what used to be the medical wing, back before the crash that killed her parents, back before the evacuation that left her behind. The station creaked around her like an old sailing ship. Every sound made her jump. Every shadow looked like something waiting to grab her. But the worst part wasn't the fear or the loneliness. The worst part was the hunger. Her stomach felt like someone had filled it with broken glass. The last protein bar was gone 2 days ago. She checked every storage locker, every emergency kit, every hidden corner where someone might have stashed food. Nothing. Just empty wrappers and her own desperation. That's when she heard it. A sound that didn't belong. Not the groan of metal or the hiss of air recyclers. Something alive. Something crying. Lily grabbed the metal pipe she'd been carrying for protection and crept toward the sound. It was coming from the collapsed section of the cargo bay, where supplies had fallen during the last Dragon attack. The station still had scorch marks on the hull from their plasma weapons. She climbed over twisted metal and broken crates, following the whimpering. Her hands were shaking. Part of her brain screamed that this was stupid, that she should run, that nothing good ever came from strange sounds on abandoned space stations. Then she saw them. 2 creatures, barely bigger than house cats, trapped under a fallen storage container. Their scales caught the dim emergency lighting, shifting colors like oil on water. Wings, torn and bloody, twitched weakly. Their eyes were clouded over, and she could count their ribs through their thin sides. Dragon hatchlings. Lily's first instinct was pure terror. Dragons had killed millions of humans across a dozen worlds. They'd attacked colony ships, destroyed mining operations, burned entire settlements to ash. Her own cousin had died on New Arizona when dragons razed the settlement there. Every human child grew up learning one simple rule: if you see a dragon, you run. But these weren't the massive, terrifying creatures from the war footage. These were babies. Starving babies who looked up at her with the same desperate fear she saw in her own reflection every day. One of them made a sound, somewhere between a chirp and a whimper. The other tried to move toward her but collapsed, too weak to stand. Lily should have walked away. Should have let nature take its course. Should have remembered what dragons had done to humanity. Instead, she remembered what it felt like to be hungry and alone and forgotten. She dropped the pipe and knelt down. Her hands found the edge of the storage container, and she pushed. It didn't budge. She pushed harder, putting her whole body into it, ignoring the way her muscles screamed and her empty stomach churned. The container shifted an inch. Then another. Finally, it fell away with a crash that echoed through the empty station. The hatchlings scrambled back, hissing, their tiny claws scraping against metal. They were scared of her. Good. They should be scared. She was scared too. "It's okay," Lily whispered, even though they couldn't understand her. "I'm not going to hurt you." She backed away slowly, giving them space. They watched her with those clouded eyes, their small bodies trembling. One of them had a piece of metal embedded in its wing. The other had burns across its back scales. Lily made a decision that went against every survival instinct, every lesson she'd learned, every warning she'd been given. She reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out the thing she'd been saving for absolute emergency. A protein bar. Not a full one, just half of one, wrapped carefully in plastic. Her last food. The thing standing between her and starvation. She unwrapped it slowly. The smell made her mouth water so much it hurt. Her stomach twisted with need. Just one bite, her brain begged. Just one small bite and give them the rest. But she didn't. She broke the protein bar into pieces and set them on the ground between her and the hatchlings. Then she backed away and waited. For a long time, nothing happened. They just stared at the food, then at her, then at the food again. Finally, hunger won over fear. The smaller one crept forward, sniffed the protein bar, and ate it in one desperate gulp. The other followed, and within seconds, the food was gone. They looked at her again, and this time, something was different in their eyes. Not trust, not yet. But maybe the beginning of it. Lily named them Spark and Ash, because one had reddish scales and the other was gray like smoke. Over the next week, she gave them everything she could find. Water from her carefully rationed supply. Scraps of emergency rations she'd been saving. Even the NutriPaste from the medical bay that tasted like cardboard mixed with chemicals. She went hungry. So hungry that sometimes she got dizzy and had to sit down. So hungry that her hands shook and her thoughts got fuzzy. But she kept feeding them, and slowly, they got stronger. Spark's scales started to shine. Ash's wing began to heal. They started following her around the station, chirping in their strange dragon language that she couldn't understand. At night, they slept curled up against her in the warm engine room, and their body heat kept her from freezing. For the first time since the crash, Lily wasn't alone. On the 7th day, the station's emergency sensors started screaming. Lily ran to the control room and pulled up the long-range scanners. Her blood turned to ice. Ships. Dozens of them. Hundreds of them. All bearing dragon markings. A fleet so large it blocked out the stars. They'd come for the hatchlings. And they'd come for her. Lily picked up Spark and Ash, holding them close as the dragon warships surrounded the station. Her whole body shook, but not from hunger this time. She'd saved them. And now their family was going to kill her for it. The airlock alarms began to blare. They were boarding. This was it. This was how her story ended. The sounds of the dragon warriors cutting through the airlock made Lily's heart pound so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. Metal screamed against metal. Sparks showered through the darkness. She could hear them on the other side of the door, speaking in that growling, rumbling language that sounded like thunder rolling across mountains. Spark and Ash chirped frantically in her arms, squirming to get free. They recognized those sounds. They knew their own kind was coming. But Lily held them tighter, backing into the corner of the cargo bay. Maybe if she stayed quiet enough, small enough, they wouldn't notice her. Maybe they'd just take the hatchlings and leave. Who was she kidding? Dragons didn't leave human survivors. Everyone knew that. The airlock door exploded inward with a blast of superheated air that made her skin sting. Lily squeezed her eyes shut, waiting for the end. She'd always wondered what death would feel like. Quick, hopefully. She didn't want it to hurt too much. Heavy footsteps echoed through the station. Not 2 or 3 dragons. Dozens of them. Maybe hundreds. Their claws clicked against the metal floors like a countdown to her execution. Through her closed eyelids, she could see the orange glow of their internal fire, the heat they carried inside their bodies. The temperature in the cargo bay rose 10 degrees, then 20. Spread out, a voice commanded in that rumbling dragon language. Find the hatchlings. Kill anything else that moves. Lily didn't understand the words, but she understood the tone. She'd heard it before in war footage, right before colonies burned. This was the voice of someone who'd come here for blood. Spark made a loud chirping sound, and Lily's eyes snapped open. No, please, be quiet, she whispered desperately. But the hatchlings weren't listening. They were calling out, announcing their presence, leading the warriors straight to her hiding spot. The footsteps got closer. A shadow fell across her, massive and terrible. Lily looked up and up and up at the creature standing over her. The dragon had to be 9 feet tall, maybe more, with scales that looked like they'd been carved from black volcanic rock. Scars crisscrossed its face and arms. Its eyes glowed like molten gold in the darkness. This was a killer. A warrior who'd probably destroyed entire human settlements without losing sleep over it. The dragon raised one clawed hand, and Lily saw her death in that gesture. She thought about her parents, buried in the wreckage of the medical transport. She thought about the empty station where nobody would ever find her body. She thought about how she'd spent her last week of life saving creatures whose species wanted her dead. At least she'd done one good thing. At least she hadn't died alone. But the killing blow never came. The dragon froze, its hand still raised, staring down at the scene before it. Lily, malnourished and trembling, holding 2 healthy, well-fed hatchlings against her chest. The hatchlings, chirping and squirming, trying to reach the warrior. More dragons crowded into the cargo bay. 20, 30, 40 of them, all in battle armor, all carrying weapons that could turn her into ash in seconds. They all stopped and stared. One of them, a massive creature with deep red scales and a crown of horns, pushed through the crowd. The other dragons stepped aside immediately, showing respect, showing fear. This was someone important. Someone powerful. The red dragon knelt down, bringing its huge face level with Lily's. Its breath was hot enough to make her skin prickle. Its teeth were longer than her fingers. One snap and she'd be gone. It spoke, and a device on its armor translated the words into English. Human child. Where did you find these hatchlings? Lily's voice came out as barely a whisper. They were trapped. In the cargo bay. Under the containers. How long have they been here? 7 days. Maybe 8. I lost count. The red dragon's eyes narrowed. And you fed them? Lily nodded, not trusting her voice anymore. Why? The question came out like an accusation. Why would a human save dragon young? Your kind kills ours. We kill yours. This is the way it has always been. Lily looked down at Spark and Ash in her arms. They'd stopped squirming and were watching her face. Because, she said slowly, they were hungry. And scared. And alone. And I know what that feels like. The red dragon tilted its head, studying her like she was a puzzle it couldn't solve. Then it turned to the other warriors and spoke in rapid dragon language. Lily caught the translator picking up fragments. Impossible, never before, the law, but she's human. An argument broke out among the dragons. Some of them wanted her dead, that much was clear from their aggressive postures and the way they kept gesturing at her with their weapons. Others seemed uncertain, conflicted. The debate got louder, more heated. Lily held the hatchlings and waited for them to decide her fate. Finally, the red dragon stood to its full height and roared. The sound was so loud that Lily felt it in her bones, in her teeth, in her chest. Every other dragon fell silent immediately. I am Matriarch Sarah, the translator said. Leader of the Fire Wing clan. These hatchlings are my sister's children, lost during a human ambush 3 weeks ago. We have searched 17 star systems. We have destroyed 6 human outposts. We have been ready to burn entire worlds to find them. Lily's blood turned cold. 6 outposts. How many people had died because of the hatchling she'd saved? Sarah continued, her golden eyes fixed on Lily. You saved them when you could have let them die. You fed them when you yourself were starving. The hatchlings have told us their story. They say you gave them your own food. Your own water. That you went hungry so they would not. I didn't know they were important, Lily said quietly. I didn't know anyone was looking for them. I just didn't want them to die alone. Sarah was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke again, and this time her voice was different. Softer. Almost gentle. There is an ancient law among our people. The calling, we name it. If one saves the young of another clan, that one becomes family, bound by blood and fire and honor. It does not matter if they are dragon or other species. The law is absolute. Lily didn't understand. What does that mean? It means, Sarah said, that you have done something no human has ever done. You have honored our most sacred law without knowing it existed. You have shown the heart of a clan mother, the soul of a protector. And so, by the ancient law, by the calling that cannot be broken, I name you clankin. I name you daughter. The cargo bay erupted in chaos. Half the dragons roared in approval. The other half roared in outrage. Weapons were drawn. Warriors faced off against each other. For a terrifying moment, Lily thought they were going to start fighting right there, with her caught in the middle. But Sarah spread her wings, and the sound was like thunder. The calling is absolute, she roared. Any who challenge it challenge me. Any who would harm this child will answer to my fire. Slowly, reluctantly, the dissenting dragons backed down. They didn't look happy about it, but they obeyed. Sarah turned back to Lily, and for the first time, something like kindness showed in those molten gold eyes. You have a choice, Lily Martinez. You may return to human space with supplies and safe passage. We will ensure no harm comes to you. Or you may come with us. You may truly become clankin. You may learn our ways, our language, our life. But know this, if you choose our world, you can never fully return to yours. You will be forever caught between two peoples, belonging fully to neither. Lily looked around the empty station. The place where her parents had died. The place where humans had abandoned her to die. Then she looked down at Spark and Ash, who chirped softly and nuzzled against her. I'll go with you, she said. I'll go home. And for the first time in 73 days, she meant it. The dragon homeworld hit Lily like a wall of fire and noise and colors she didn't have names for. Pyros was nothing like the gray, cold space stations she'd grown up on. Everything here was alive, burning, moving. Volcanoes erupted in the distance, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Cities carved into mountainsides glowed with internal heat. And everywhere, dragons. Thousands of them. Flying, walking, breathing fire, living their lives like she didn't exist. Except they knew she existed. And most of them hated her for it. The ship landed in the capital city, and Lily stepped out onto soil that was warm enough to feel through her boots. The air tasted like sulfur and smoke. Her eyes watered. Her lungs burned with each breath. This planet wasn't made for humans. Nothing here was made for something as fragile as her. Sarah led her through streets filled with dragons who stopped and stared. Their conversations died mid-sentence. Parents pulled their children closer. Warriors reached for weapons they weren't carrying. Lily kept her head down and followed Sarah, feeling every eye on her back like a target. They arrived at a massive building carved from black stone, decorated with flames that never went out. The council hall, Sarah called it, where the clan leaders made decisions that affected millions of dragons across dozens of worlds. Inside, 12 dragons sat in a circle, each one more terrifying than the last. Battle-scarred warriors. Ancient creatures with scales that had seen centuries of war. Leaders who'd ordered attacks on human colonies. They all turned to look at Lily, and the weight of their attention almost crushed her. "This is madness," one of them growled. The translator on Lily's wrist converted his words. "You bring a human here? To our most sacred place? Have you lost your mind, Sarah?" "The calling has been invoked," Sarah said calmly. "The law is clear." "The law was written for dragons," another council member roared, rising to her feet. Her scales were pale blue, covered in frost that never melted even in the heat. "Not for humans. Not for the species that has killed thousands of our young. That has harvested our scales for armor. That has turned our homeworlds into battlefields." Lily flinched. She'd learned about the war in school, but always from the human side. Brave colonists defending themselves from dragon attacks. Heroes fighting off monsters. Nobody had ever mentioned harvested scales or dead dragon children. "She saved my sister's hatchlings," Sarah said. "She starved herself to feed them. She knew what we were, knew what we'd done to her people, and she chose mercy over revenge. That is the soul of the calling." "Or it's a trick," a scarred grey dragon said quietly. His voice was soft, but somehow more dangerous than the others. "A clever human spy, earning our trust so she can learn our weaknesses. Perhaps her government planned this. Abandoned her deliberately, hoping we'd take her in." Lily's hands balled into fists. "Nobody planned anything. The evacuation ship was full. There wasn't room for an orphan with no family. They left me to die because I didn't matter enough to save." The grey dragon leaned forward. "Then give us one reason why we should trust you. One reason why we shouldn't execute you right now and save ourselves future trouble." Lily's heart hammered. She looked around at the 12 dragons, at Sarah who'd saved her, at Spark and Ash watching from the corner. "I can't give you a reason," she said finally. "You're right. I could be lying. I could be a spy. You have no way to know for sure. But I know one thing. I spent 73 days alone on a dying station, and the only thing that kept me human was choosing to help something that needed help. If you kill me for that, fine. But it won't change the fact that I did it. And I'd do it again." The silence that followed was so complete, Lily could hear her own heartbeat. Then one of the council members, an ancient gold dragon with milky eyes, spoke for the first time. "She has courage. That much is clear. Very well. Let her stay. But she must prove herself. She must train as our young train. Fight as our warriors fight. If she survives, perhaps she has earned the right to be called clankin." The other council members nodded slowly, reluctantly. It wasn't acceptance. But it was a chance. The training started the next day, and Lily quickly realized she'd made a terrible mistake. The training grounds were carved into the side of an active volcano. The heat was so intense that Lily's skin turned red within minutes. Dragon hatchlings her age, some as young as 12, practiced combat moves that would kill a human instantly. They breathed fire. They flew. They lifted boulders twice their size. And then there was Lily. 5'2". 110 pounds. No scales. No wings. No fire. Just a stubborn human girl who refused to quit. Her instructor was a dragon named Torch, and he hated her on sight. "You're weak," he said on the first day, not bothering to hide his contempt. "Slow. Fragile. You'll break during the first real exercise." He wasn't wrong. The first exercise was a simple endurance run up the mountain. The dragon younglings finished it in 20 minutes, their powerful legs eating up the distance. Lily took 3 hours, and she collapsed at the top, vomiting from heat exhaustion. The second exercise was worse. Combat training. Hand-to-hand against opponents twice her size with claws that could gut her. She lasted 30 seconds before a dragon youngster knocked her flat on her back, claws at her throat. "Pathetic," Torch said. "Again." She got up. Got knocked down. Got up again. By the end of the first week, she was covered in bruises that turned her skin purple and yellow. She couldn't raise her arms without pain shooting through her shoulders. She fell asleep each night crying, with Spark and Ash curled around her, trying to keep her warm. The other trainees mocked her constantly. Human weakling, they called her. Sarah's pet. The thing that doesn't belong. They tripped her during runs. Hit her harder than necessary during sparring. Made sure she knew she wasn't welcome. But Lily had learned something during those 73 days alone on the station. She'd learned that surviving isn't about being the strongest or the fastest. It's about refusing to give up even when everything hurts and your body screams at you to quit. So she stopped trying to match the dragons in strength. Instead, she studied them. Watched how they moved. Learned their patterns. Dragons were powerful, but they were also predictable. They relied on their natural advantages, on overwhelming their opponents with raw force. Lily started fighting smarter. During sparring matches, she dodged instead of blocking. Used her smaller size to slip under attacks. Went for weak points that dragons forgot they had because they'd never needed to protect them before. 3 weeks into training, she won her first match. The dragon she beat was so shocked, he just stood there staring while the other trainees went silent. Torch watched from the sidelines, his expression unreadable. When the match ended, he walked over to Lily. She braced herself for mockery, for punishment, for being told she'd gotten lucky. Instead, he said, "You're starting to think like a dragon. Good. Now do it 100 more times." It wasn't praise, exactly. But coming from Torch, it was close enough. Lily dove into her studies with desperate intensity. She learned the dragon language, stumbling over the guttural sounds that hurt her throat to make. She studied their history, their clan structures, their honor codes. She sat with the elders and listened to stories about the old wars, about dragon heroes, about the sacred duty to protect the young of any species. Slowly, impossibly, some of the dragons started to warm to her. Not all of them. Not even most of them. But a few would nod when she passed. A few stopped going out of their way to hurt her during training. A few started calling her by name instead of the human. Spark and Ash grew rapidly, going from cat size to dog size to the size of small cars. They never left her side, translating when she struggled with the language, defending her when the cruelty got too much, sleeping beside her every night. 6 months passed. Lily's skin tanned dark from the constant heat. Her muscles, though still small compared to dragons, became hard as iron. Her hands developed calluses thick enough to grip burning metal. She could speak the dragon language without thinking now, could move through their combat forms with the grace of someone who'd been training her whole life. She was still human. Still weak by dragon standards. Still other. But she was also, undeniably, becoming one of them. Then news arrived that shattered the fragile peace she'd built. A human fleet had been spotted at the edge of dragon territory. The largest military force humanity had ever assembled. And they were coming to end the dragon threat once and for all. The alarm bells rang across Pyros like the screaming of dying stars. Lily was in the middle of combat training when the sound pierced through the volcanic heat, sending every dragon into immediate action. Warriors grabbed weapons. Youngsters were herded into protective caves. The sky filled with dragons taking flight, their scales catching the red light of the volcanoes like 1,000 flying torches. Torch grabbed Lily's shoulder with one massive claw. "Get to the shelters. Now." "What's happening?" Lily asked, but she already knew. Deep in her gut, she knew. "Humans," Torch said, and the word came out like a curse. "A fleet. Bigger than anything we've ever seen. They're 3 days away from our nesting worlds." Lily's blood went cold. Nesting worlds. Where dragon eggs were kept, where the youngest hatchlings lived, where the future of the entire species grew. If humans attacked there, it wouldn't be a battle. It would be genocide. She ran to the council hall, pushing past dragons who tried to stop her. Inside, chaos ruled. The 12 council members were shouting over each other, their voices overlapping into a wall of noise and fury. Holograms floated in the center of the room, showing the human fleet. Hundreds of ships. Thousands of weapons. All pointed at dragon space like a gun to the head. "We hit them first," the frost-scaled council member was saying. "Full assault. Every warrior, every ship. We end this before they reach the nesting grounds." "That's exactly what they want," another argued. "They'll pick us off in open space. We should fortify the nesting worlds, make them so costly to attack that they'll retreat." "Humans don't retreat," the scarred gray dragon said quietly. "They finish what they start. This fleet wasn't assembled for a skirmish. It's assembled for extermination." Lily's hands shook. Extermination. The word hung in the air like poison. She thought about her own people, about the colonies she'd grown up hearing stories about the families who'd lost loved ones to dragon attacks. They wanted revenge. They wanted it to end. And they decided the only way to end it was to make sure dragons couldn't fight back anymore. There has to be another way, Lily said. Her voice was small in the huge chamber, but somehow everyone heard it. The arguing stopped. 12 pairs of dragon eyes turned toward her. The human speaks, the frost dragon said coldly. Perhaps she knows something about this fleet? Perhaps she's been sending them information all along? I've been here for 6 months, Lily shot back. Training. Learning. Getting beaten up by your warriors. When exactly was I supposed to be sending secret messages? She has a point, Sarah said from her seat. Continue, Lily. What other way do you see? Lily took a deep breath. The idea forming in her head was insane. It would probably fail. It might get her killed. But it was the only chance she could think of. Let me talk to them. The silence that followed was so complete, it felt like the whole planet had stopped breathing. Then the frost dragon laughed. It wasn't a nice laugh. Talk to them? Child, they've come here to kill us. Words won't stop weapons. Maybe not, Lily said. But nobody's tried words yet. You've been fighting for decades, both sides attacking and counterattacking, and has it solved anything? Has it made either species safer? The humans started it, a council member growled. They expanded into our nesting territories without asking, without caring what they destroyed. And you attacked their colonies without explaining why, Lily countered. You burned settlements without telling them they'd built on sacred ground. Both sides just kept hitting back harder, and now we're here, at the edge of mutual extinction. The ancient gold dragon with milky eyes leaned forward. What would you say to them, human child? What words could possibly change mindset on war? Lily thought about Spark and Ash, about the way dragons protected their young, about the honor code she'd learned, about the calling that had saved her life. The truth, she said finally. I'd tell them the truth about dragon culture. About your honor, your laws, your reasons for fighting. I'd show them what I've become. I'd prove that dragons aren't mindless monsters and humans aren't heartless invaders. We're both just people trying to protect what matters to us. And if they kill you the moment you appear? Sarah asked quietly. Then at least we tried. At least we gave peace one chance before the killing started again. The council members looked at each other. Lily could see the calculation in their eyes. She was expendable. A human girl wouldn't be much of a loss if the gamble failed. But if it worked, if somehow she could prevent the war, it would save millions of lives on both sides. There's something else, Lily said, her voice steadier now. The fleet is being led by Admiral David Martinez. He's my uncle. My father's brother. He searched for me for a year before they declared me dead. If anyone might listen, it's him. That changed everything. She could see it in their faces. A personal connection. A reason for the human leader to hesitate, to consider alternatives, to maybe not immediately shoot on sight. Sarah stood up, spreading her wings. I will take her. 30 ships as escort. We approach under truce signals. If they fire on us, we retreat and prepare for war. If they listen, perhaps we have found a path away from this madness. You're risking your life for a slim chance, the Grey Dragon said. Yes, Sarah agreed. But Lily risked her life for 2 hatchlings she'd never met. Perhaps it's time we learned from her example. 2 days later, Lily stood on the bridge of Sarah's flagship, watching the human fleet grow larger in the viewport. Her heart hammered so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. She was wearing dragon armor now, fitted to her smaller frame, marked with the symbols of Clan Sarah. Her hair had grown long, tied back in the dragon style. She looked like someone caught between 2 worlds, belonging fully to neither. Spark and Ash stood on either side of her, massive now, their scales gleaming like polished metal. They'd refused to stay behind. Where she went, they went. That was the bond they'd formed, stronger than species, stronger than war. The human fleet's communication channel crackled to life. Unidentified dragon vessels, you are entering restricted military space. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded, or we will open fire. Lily's mouth went dry. This was it. The moment where everything either changed or fell apart. She activated the transmission, knowing her face would appear on every screen in the human fleet. This is Lily Martinez, she said, and her voice only shook a little. Sole survivor of the Harper 9 station disaster. Requesting permission to speak with Admiral David Martinez. I have information that could prevent a war. Please. Just listen. For 30 seconds, nothing happened. Lily counted each heartbeat, each breath, wondering if the next moment would bring laser fire and the end of everything. Then a voice came through the speakers. Older than she remembered. Tired. But unmistakably her uncle's voice. Lily? Is that really you? Tears burned in her eyes. Yeah, Uncle David. It's really me. And we need to talk. The human flagship agreed to a meeting. Neutral ground, a derelict station halfway between the two fleets. Limited attendees. No weapons. The kind of arrangement where one wrong move could trigger a war that would burn through star systems. Lily stepped into the meeting room with Sarah beside her and Spark and Ash at her back. On the other side of the table sat her uncle, flanked by two human officers who looked at the dragons like they were demons given flesh. Uncle David looked older than she remembered. Gray streaked his hair. Lines carved deep around his eyes. He'd aged years in the months she'd been gone. Lily, he breathed, standing up. They told me you were dead. We searched for weeks. I thought I'd lost you like I lost your father. I almost did die, Lily said. But they saved me. She gestured to Sarah. The dragons saved me. And before you ask, no, I'm not brainwashed. I'm not a hostage. I'm here because if we don't stop this war right now, millions of people on both sides are going to die for no reason. No reason. One of the human officers slammed his hand on the table. They've destroyed 12 colonies. Killed thousands of our people. And you've killed thousands of theirs, Lily shot back. But has anyone ever asked why the attack started? That got their attention. Uncle David sat back down slowly, his eyes never leaving Lily's face. Explain it to me then. Make me understand why they've been burning our settlements for 20 years. Lily pulled up a holographic map between them, her fingers shaking as she worked the controls. She'd practiced this presentation 100 times with Sarah, knowing she'd only get one chance. Look at this. Every single dragon attack on human colonies. Notice anything? The human officers leaned forward, studying the red markers scattered across the star map. Uncle David's eyes narrowed. They're all on the outer rim. Expansion territories. Not just expansion territories, Lily said. Look closer. Every single one was built within 10 light-years of a dragon nesting world. Places where dragons lay their eggs, where their youngest hatchlings grow up. Places that have been sacred to them for thousands of years. She zoomed in on one system. New Arizona. The colony your brother died defending. It was built 3 light-years from a nesting moon that had been active for 8 generations. Humans didn't know. Dragons didn't tell us. They just showed up one day and attacked, and we thought they were monsters. Because they didn't use words, one of the officers said bitterly. They used fire. You're right, Lily said. They should have communicated. Should have warned us. But think about it from their side. They'd never met another intelligent species before humans. In their culture, everyone knows you don't build near nesting grounds. It's their most basic law, like how we don't murder each other or steal. They assumed we knew. And when we didn't stop, when we kept building and expanding, they thought we were doing it on purpose. They thought we were deliberately threatening their children. Sarah spoke for the first time, her voice rumbling through the translator. It was a failure on both sides. We should have spoken. You should have asked. Instead, we attacked, you retaliated, we hit back harder, and the cycle fed itself until here we are. Ready to commit mutual extinction over a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding that's killed thousands, Uncle David said quietly. On both sides. Yes, Lily agreed. And if we don't stop it now, it'll kill millions more. That's why I'm here. That's why I'm asking you to stand down the fleet. The other officer, a woman with captain's bars, shook her head. Impossible. Do you know how much political pressure it took to assemble this fleet? Congress, the colonial governors, the military leadership, they all demanded action. Real action. If we go back without results, they'll crucify us. Then don't go back without results, Lily said. Go back with something better than a military victory that cost thousands of lives. Go back with peace. Peace with dragons? The captain laughed, but it was a hollow sound. The public will never accept it. Too much history. Too much blood. Lily stood up and walked around the table until she was standing right in front of her uncle. Uncle David, you searched for me for a year. You never gave up hope. Why? Because you're family, he said simply. Because that's what family does. Exactly. Lily turned and gestured to Spark and Ash, who'd been sitting quietly in the corner. They came forward, their massive forms somehow gentle as they approached. These two were starving when I found them. I had one protein bar left. I could have eaten it myself and maybe survived another week. Instead, I fed them. And you know what happened? Their entire fleet showed up to kill me. But they didn't. Because dragons have this law called the calling. If you save someone's child, you become family. No exceptions. No conditions. She placed one hand on Spark's scaled head, the other on Ash's. They adopted me. A human girl who should have been their enemy. They trained me, protected me, taught me their language and their culture. And I learned something that changed everything I thought I knew about dragons. What's that? Uncle David asked. They're people. Not monsters. Not animals. People. They love their children the way we love ours. They have honor codes, art, music, history. They tell stories around fires and argue about politics and get scared when someone they love is in danger. Lily's voice cracked. They're just like us, Uncle David. And we've been killing each other because neither side stopped long enough to see it. The room fell silent. Lily could see her uncle wrestling with decades of assumptions, years of hatred, months of grief. The captain looked skeptical. The other officer wouldn't meet her eyes. Finally, Uncle David spoke. Let's say I believe you. Let's say everything you're telling me is true. How do we sell this to the government? To the colonies? To people who've lost family members to dragon attacks? Sarah leaned forward. The same way we will convince our people to trust humans. By creating something visible. Something undeniable. A joint venture that proves cooperation benefits both species. Like what? The captain asked. A protection force, Lily said. The idea had come to her during the flight here, watching human and dragon ships facing each other across space. Mixed crews. Human and dragon working together to patrol the frontier. Protecting both species colonies from pirates, raiders, territorial disputes. Show both our peoples that we're stronger together than apart. You're talking about putting humans and dragons on the same ships. The officer looked horrified. That's insane. So was a 15-year-old girl feeding dragon hatchlings, Lily shot back. But I did it anyway, and it saved thousands of lives. Maybe millions, if we can make this work. Uncle David was quiet for a long time, staring at the star map, at the red markers showing decades of violence. Finally, he looked up at Sarah. If we do this, if we stand down the fleet and propose cooperation instead of conflict, I need guarantees. No more attacks on human colonies. Full communication about nesting grounds. Reparations for the families who lost loved ones. Agreed, Sarah said. But we require the same. No expansion into marked nesting territories. Shared intelligence about threats to both species. And reparations for our losses as well. The government will fight this, the captain warned. Hell, half the fleet will probably mutiny when they find out we're negotiating with dragons. Then we'll have to convince them, Uncle David said. He looked at Lily with something that might have been pride. You've grown up, kid. When did that happen? Lily felt tears burning in her eyes. When I had to. When there was no one else to do it. The negotiations took 3 months. 3 months of intense back and forth, of hardliners on both sides screaming about betrayal, of protests and threats and several close calls where the whole thing almost fell apart. But slowly, impossibly, a framework emerged. The Joint Defense Initiative. Mixed Human-Dragon Patrol Wings. Shared technology programs. Cultural exchange centers. Formal recognition of dragon nesting territories in human star charts. Reparation funds for families on both sides. And at the center of it all, the calling law, expanded to become the foundation of a new relationship between species. Lily became the first commander of the joint forces, despite being only 16 years old. Who else could do it? Who else spoke both languages fluently? Who else had family on both sides, had trained with both species, had proven that cooperation was possible? The first mixed patrol was chaos. Human pilots who'd been fighting dragons for years now flying alongside them. Dragon warriors who'd burned human settlements now protecting them. Arguments broke out constantly. Cultural misunderstandings caused near disasters. Some days Lily wondered if the whole thing would collapse. But slowly, gradually, it started to work. A human navigator saved a dragon pilot's life during a pirate attack, and suddenly they were bonded. A dragon warrior showed human marines a better way to fight in zero gravity, and respect started to form. Spark and Ash became symbols of the new alliance, appearing in propaganda videos that played on both human and dragon worlds. 5 years later, Lily stood on the observation deck of the Joint Command Station, watching mixed crews head out on patrol. She was 20 now, wearing a uniform that combined elements of both human and dragon military tradition. Scars from training covered her arms. Her hair was longer, braided in the dragon style. She looked like what she was, something new. Something that hadn't existed before. Uncle David joined her at the window. He'd retired from active duty but still advised the Joint Council. Thinking about the old days? Always, Lily said. Sometimes I still can't believe this worked. It worked because of you. Because one girl decided that starving hatchlings were more important than old hatreds. Lily shook her head. It worked because both species were tired of dying. I just gave them an excuse to stop. They watched a patrol ship jump to hyperspace, its crew of 6 humans and 6 dragons working together like they'd been doing it forever. Maybe not perfectly. Maybe with arguments and misunderstandings and occasional fights. But working together. The politicians are still arguing about whether to build a memorial, Uncle David said. Half want it on Earth. Half want it on Pyros. Build it in space, Lily said. Between both worlds. Where it belongs. Later that night, in her quarters, Lily sat with Spark and Ash. They were huge now, full-grown dragons who'd earned their warrior marks in battle. But they still curled around her the way they had when they were starving hatchlings on a dying station. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't fed you? Lily asked them. Spark rumbled a response that her translator converted. We would have died. You would have died. And our species would still be killing each other. Pretty big consequences for half a protein bar, Lily said with a small smile. The smallest actions carry the largest ripples, Ash said. That's what the elders teach. One act of mercy. One moment of courage. One choice to see the person instead of the enemy. Lily looked out the window at the stars, at the vast darkness scattered with lights. Somewhere out there, humans and dragons who used to be enemies were learning to be neighbors. Children were growing up knowing both species as allies. The future was being written in cooperation instead of blood. It wasn't perfect. Probably never would be. There were still people on both sides who wanted the old ways back, who saw peace as weakness. There were still incidents, still misunderstandings, still moments when the whole fragile structure threatened to collapse. But it was holding. And it had all started with one orphan girl who'd chosen compassion over fear, kindness over survival, hope over hatred. They called her the bridge builder now. The girl who connected 2 species. The human with dragon family. The symbol of what could be when people chose understanding over violence. But in her own mind, she was still just Lily. The girl who couldn't let anyone starve alone. Not even her enemies. And somehow, that had been enough to change everything.